Welcome to Big Questions. This is Cal Fussman, an old school guy telling you what's coming. Every week that I talk to people about AI, I believe more and more that it's not us humans versus AI. It's us dancing with AI. A couple of weeks ago, I had Charles Gaudet, who's coached thousands of CEOs in his career, on the podcast. He predicted that in a short time, people will be applying for jobs BYOA. Bring your own agent, showcasing what you and your AI bot can do together. Last week, Dr. David Bach talked about how the work he's doing at Optios will allow golfers to cut strokes off their game, and basketball players to improve their free throw shooting, not to mention showing me how to learn a subject I didn't do well at in school like science, because AI can put us in the zone to see it in a new light. This week, I look at a collaboration between the writer Jamie Metzl and ChatGPT-5 called the AI 10 Commandments. One of the founders of Apple, Steve Wozniak, said, "If you care about the future, read this book." It's the first time a human and AI shared a writer's credit on the cover of a major published book, and I was caught off guard when Jamie told me that religion, spirituality, and technological advances have gone hand in hand throughout history. Listen up.
And so I gave a talk on AI and spirituality, and I talked about the long, deep connection between technology and religious and spiritual traditions. And we think of all of our traditions as existing from time immemorial, but it's not true. Our animist traditions are connected to our ancestors controlling fire. All of what we call world religions are agrarian religions connected to the domestication of agriculture. Protestantism is a printing press religion, tradition. And so that's always been the case. And every major technological innovation, whether it's writing or the book or farming, has had profound spiritual and religious implications. And what I said is AI will be no different. So that's coming.
But simply understanding what Jamie went through to create the book is a great lesson in how humans can use AI to get the most out of themselves. Certainly, as far as writing in school is concerned, there's been so much talk about how AI is sanctioning cheating and how it gets humans to surrender their creativity. I've done a podcast on a teacher who banned technology from the classroom and got the students to see the merits of learning the old school way. The thing is, Jamie brought those old school values to his process. He's got a Ph.D. in history from Oxford and a law degree from Harvard. He's run roughly 60 marathons and 40 ultramarathons. His first book took him 9 years to write. He doesn't back off from a challenge. The process Jamie went through is actually a template for how students can document what they've learned and be graded on it, along with a way for teachers to easily identify someone who just hit a key and asked AI to do all the work for them. So let's listen to his process that came out of that speech he delivered at the place that shaped America's curiosity, Chautauqua.
And then I talked a little bit about all of our different traditions, and every story, certainly the Judeo-Christian story, the Book of Mormon, it all has the same thing. Some kind of impossible thing happened a long time ago. Nobody could prove it. And then a community of people had to just go on it on faith. And from that, we have our biblical 10 Commandments. And I went through the 10 Commandments and I read them out. And I said, all right, who here is on board for doing this? And pretty much most of the 10 Commandments, nobody would sign up for doing literally. Because people say, well, thou shalt not kill. Not killing is good. But if you're landing on the beaches of Normandy and you're doing thou shalt not kill, it's actually considered treason. Our biggest heroes are the people who landed on the beaches of Normandy with the goal to kill people in order to save other people. And so we have a lot of complications. And yet we live in a world where we are completely divided, that we all have our different traditions, and some are older and some are newer, and they all have a lot of wisdom in them. And many of us are born into traditions, or we enter traditions, and we have a lot of us and them in our traditions. And yet, when we have these moments where we can see ourselves collectively, like the Artemis 2 astronauts looking down at Earth, it's actually kind of magical for everybody. And people just take a step back and pause and say, actually, no, we are just kind of one thing. We are these humans, and we have this little brief period of life, and we can use it to celebrate life, or we can keep killing each other and creating all these horrible problems. And so with all of that as a lead in, I talked about AI and how AI, like every other technology we've had in the past, has the ability to do horrible things and wonderful things depending on how we use it and how we govern it and how we regulate and what kinds of activities we promote and encourage, and what other types of activities we discourage. And so in the context of this talk, I explained my process of collaborating with GPT-4 and then 5, where I had asked it this question based on a comprehensive analysis of all of human recorded history and all of our different religious, spiritual, moral, and ethical traditions. What are 10 principles that, if followed by everybody, would lead to the greatest amounts of peace, happiness, and human flourishing? And it gave these beautiful 10 list of principles, which I call the AI 10 Commandments. And then in thousands of back and forths with the AI, I said, well, let's explore where each of these are coming from. And we dug deeper and deeper. And it was this total mix of all of our different traditions, religious, spiritual, moral, ethical, indigenous. And it turns out, just like the Artemis 2 astronauts, there was so much wisdom that all of our traditions had wonderful wisdom. All of our traditions were trying to do largely the same things. And obviously, there are some small differences. And so using that as the source code, we had just had these beautiful commandments. And so anyway, after I gave that talk at Chautauqua, all the old people at Chautauqua, and there are many thousands of them who are there for the summer, tens of thousands, I was just getting mobbed as I was walking around. It's a campus. It's almost like a little village. And people were saying, I need those AI 10 commandments. And I said, I'm going to write a book.
How did you decide to go about it?
I decided, I was going to do it a little bit differently than the other 6 books that I've previously written. And those books were kind of my Walden Pond books, where I would learn and think, and I'd go out into the woods and I'd reflect. And this book started out with Walden Pond kind of thinking, because I had spent months thinking about that talk and how I wanted to frame everything and putting everything together. But then when I wrote this book, what I first did, same with every book, I did an extensive, highly detailed outline. But then I started to do things differently. I went through my outline. I said, what are sections of this book where I'm summarizing a vast field of knowledge in a condensed space, which is what I do in all of my books. But I decided that I was going to collaborate with GPT-5 on those things, on those kinds of inserts. And so what I did is, first, I trained GPT-5 on my writing style by uploading a lot of my work. And then I would say, all right, now I need 3 paragraphs on this, based on this thesis sentence. For example, AI has the potential to see us holistically and from a type of perspective like we have when looking down at an ant colony from above. And then I said, in my writing style, give me 3 paragraphs making these, starting with this sentence, making these 5 points. And it would give something, and it wouldn't be very good in the first time. And I'd say, well, make these changes. And it would do something. I'd say, now make these changes. We'd go back and forth. And then when it was decent enough, then I would take that text, put it into Microsoft Word, and I do a full line edit of that. Then I would put it back in GPT-5 and say, how can I make these 3 paragraphs better? And it would say, oh, you're using this word twice, or whatever. It was sometimes good, sometimes bad advice. And so we'd have a bunch of back and forths that way. And then when I was happy with these 3 paragraphs, I'd plop them in the text and I'd keep writing. And so everything voice, everything argument was 100% me, but on some of these summarizing big fields of knowledge. So then we did the first draft that way. Then on my own, I went through and I cut about 40% of the text. And then I rewrote most of the whole book. And then I hired a phenomenal human editor who I worked with and spent 6 months doing the same kind of professional editing of this book. And so, but when the book came, when I was putting it out into the world, I thought, it was a deep collaboration, even though I did the vast, vast, vast majority of the work. Even though I'm a novelist and I love language and I wasn't going to put any crap, and there's a whole lot of AI crap out into the world. But I just decided if I had had this kind of collaboration with another human, I would have listed their name on the cover or in the acknowledgments. And whether it was a collaborator or it certainly wasn't a ghostwriter, but some kind of collaborator, maybe I would have put Jamie Metzl with Cal Fussman or with whomever, or maybe in the acknowledgments, I think it's kind of fraudulent to people who do these ghostwritten books and then they have some kind of weaselly language in the acknowledgments, like this book never would have happened but for the wonderful contribution of Cal Fussman. But basically, Cal Fussman wrote the whole book. Anyway, but I decided I wanted to be ahead of that curve, and I decided this was a collaboration. It was a collaboration doing something that AI could never in a gazillion years have done on its own. But even though I could have sat down and written 10 principles that could have been, probably just as good as what AI did, I couldn't have said that I'd analyzed all of the digitized cultural history of humanity in doing so. And I thought that was a very unique contribution, worthy of being recognized. And that's why I insisted on having GPT-5 as my named co-author. And this is the first major nonfiction work with an AI as the named listed co-author.
Well, let's hear these commandments. Apparently, my cat, Sophie, wanted to hear them too.
So, number 1, treat every being with compassion and dignity.
Who's going to argue with that? Except con men.
Yeah. No, all of these things are intuitive to everyone. If you read, when I read the biblical 10 commandments, they weren't intuitive to everybody. I think you're going to see that all of these things, though, that sounds good, that sounds good, that sounds good. That's what you want from 10 aspirationally universal principles. You don't want something like, God, I never thought about that. So that's all right. So I can read. You tell me my number 2. Do no harm. Actively protect the vulnerable.
The first one sounded like the golden rule.
Yeah.
And the second one, Muhammad was an orphan, and protecting the vulnerable was one of his essential messages. So
and he did a lot of harm in protect. So there's a contradiction. Do no harm, actively protect the vulnerable. I talked about the people landing in Normandy. They were doing harm in order to actively protect the vulnerable. So there are. I'm not saying that these are all perfect or there aren't inherent contradictions. There are, but it's aspirational. Like the Jains have the principle of hisma. I'm getting it wrong, and hissa. Sorry, Jains, I screwed it up. But it's do no harm, and it's just, the thing is to do your best, and that's what the Jains do. Ahimsa. Sorry.
Who are the Jains? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Jains are wonderful people. The Jains, it's an offshoot of Hinduism, but they think it's related to Hinduism, and largely in Gujarat in India, but elsewhere as well. And the goal is to do no harm. And so they cover their mouths when they're out walking so they don't accidentally swallow a bug, and they don't eat meat, and they're just very active in trying to do no harm, which really means doing as little harm as possible.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
All right,
number
3.
4.
Well, no, 3.
We didn't get to 3 yet. I'm sorry. Number 3.
Yeah. Speak and act truthfully with integrity and humility.
Nobody's going to argue with that one.
Yeah, so like with the biblical 10 commandment about bearing false witness, sometimes it's good to lie. Like if you're on the Underground Railroad and you're hiding escaped slaves and somebody comes and says, hey, do you have slaves in the basement? It's best to say no. The moral thing is to say, no, I don't have slaves in the basement. So I think that, again, I'm not saying any of these are perfect. There are internal contradictions, but aspirationally, I believe we should say, here's the ideal. And if everybody is speaking and acting truthfully with integrity and humility, actually, the need to not speak and act truthfully will decrease. So, all right, number 4, share generously, especially with those in need. Number 5, seek to understand others before judging them.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Shirzad Chamine who wrote a book called Positive Intelligence. And it's all about internal saboteurs and internal sages. And the judge is the biggest saboteur. You can judge yourself harshly. You can judge other people harshly. And so that commandment, it sounds like, was designed to speak to that.
And it doesn't say don't judge. It says seek to understand others before judging them. So my feeling is I want to judge a Hitler or a Stalin or a whomever. I want to judge them. So it's not saying don't judge. It's just judge mindfully.
Okay, that's nice.
That's fine. Yeah. Nice. So number 6, resolve conflict with fairness, forgiveness, and the intent to heal. Number 7.
Say that one again. I want to really get a grip.
Okay, sure. Resolve conflict with fairness, forgiveness, and the intent to heal.
Wow, the intent to heal, that's a crucial phrase.
Yep.
All right, next.
Now, live in harmony with nature and all forms of life.
That's beautiful.
Number 8, value wisdom over dominance, cultivate inner growth.
Wow, why were those two put together?
It's interesting, but I think that inner growth is what leads you to wisdom. Or are you saying why are wisdom and dominance together?
No, it was wisdom and inner growth. Lots of times we get our wisdom from all our screw ups.
But I guess screwing up is what facilitates inner growth. I mean, inner growth doesn't mean you're not screwing up. It's evaluate wisdom over dominance, cultivate inner growth.
Okay. You know what? Cultivate inner growth is the nicest way to say, feel free to screw up.
It could be.
Cherish your mistakes.
Screw ups have no value unless you learn from them.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Number 9, honor the freedom and uniqueness of others. And number 10, remember the sacredness of life, live with awe, gratitude, and love.
Well, I don't know many people who would go on record saying that they're against any of those 10.
Yeah. No, and so they're more intuitive. So if I were to read you the biblical 10 commandments, many of the essential texts of pretty much all of our traditions, I think this, maybe the principles of Baha'ism, maybe the principles of Unitarianism would all, and whatever of course the ancient Egyptian cat worship cult, are all things that everybody would kind of agree with. But Unitarianism, for example, it comes out of Christianity. Unitarianism is a church. It comes out of Christianity. And so every tradition has its liberal left, more universalist part. Islam has Sufism, Judaism has Reform Judaism, Christianity has Unitarianism. Everybody's got that. But what we don't have is one set of universal principles inspired by all of our traditions. That's what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was trying to do. And certainly there have been evangelicals who are saying, well, everybody should follow my individual thing. But as I've said before, even if let's say Moses existed, and let's say he got that stuff on the top of Sinai, from what we can gather in the Old Testament, nobody involved had any clue that there were other civilizations in the Americas where we are now who had their own spiritual, religious, moral, ethical traditions that were very beautiful in different ways, that were aspiring to address the questions of how do we live better with each other and the world around us. So, many of our traditions come from a time when our communities were very isolated. And now that's not the case. We have access to everybody else. And so I just think that why not say, well, how do we draw on the wisdom of all of humanity rather than say, well, my little tradition from my little group, whatever it is, has a monopoly on the truth. And it's just too bad that your ancestors were discriminated against because they weren't given this truth.
Jamie's list actually made me wonder about my sponsor, Moments. Were there any commandments to reward travel? I asked the heart of the sales team, Sarah Levenbaum. She took a walk, went down to the water in Long Island, and brought her ideas back to the podcast. Moments is part of LuxuryConciergeTravel.com, and it allows companies to reward employees who do extraordinary work with trips around the world that are put together by a white-gloved concierge team. Sarah thought about the commandments through the reward winner's point of view. What did they need to do to get the best trip?
Number one, extraordinary is the baseline. It's not an upgrade. So this is not your budget vacation. This is a reward, and we should treat it as such. Number two, no two trips should look exactly the same. So your neighbor who also won this trip and this reward goes to New York and they have a certain kind of experience. It's not going to be the same for you. So we are going to personalize that for you. So every trip is different. Number three, don't follow trends. Don't be social media influenced. We want you to lean into that hobby you have or that special interest in history that you have. We want to indulge that for you. So take advantage of that knowledge that we have to build something that's very specific to you and not just what's trending on social media. Number four, half of the reward is who you travel with. So we want you to be really thoughtful in who you bring along on your trip because they are going to make it or break it. So we want you to take your significant other. We want you to take your family, your best girlfriend, your buddy, and enjoy that time with that person because, again, it really is about who you're traveling with. Number five, we measure success in stories. So it's not about the place you've gone necessarily. It's not about the restaurant you ate at. It's about the conversations you had and the experiences you have and those stories that you bring home. Number six, let yourself be fully present. All that stuff at home is going to still be there when you get back. Don't think about your email. Don't think about the laundry piling up. None of that matters. You're on vacation. You're on a trip, and you should fully be present in that trip. Number seven, be flexible and be open to new ideas. We really want you to come to us with a blank slate. We want to get to know you and we want to build a trip that is going to match who you are. So we want you to come with an open mind and adventure in your heart so that you can allow us to build something that's going to be very unique to you. Number eight, we're there when it matters most. So that means we're there for your planning, we're there for your research, but also more importantly, we're there for you whenever you are on your trip and something goes wrong, weather happens, things like that. Or when you're in a cafe, you're so relaxed and you just don't want to get up and go do that walking tour that we booked for you, that you were so ambitious and thinking that you wanted to do. We'll cancel it. We'll reschedule it for you. We are there for you 24/7 while you're traveling. Number nine, Get the insurance. We provide travel insurance as part of this package that we do, and it's important that you have it. Things happen. Something happens at home, or a hurricane comes through, or something else. Life happens, and so that insurance is there for you so that you can cancel and rebook when it makes more sense for you. Last but not least, check your passport. You think you have all your documents in place, just make sure you double check that. The last thing we want to do is get a beautiful trip planned and then you can't leave the country or you can't get on the plane.
There's no debating those commandments. And you know what? Sarah didn't need to go to AI to write them up. There's a beauty in that. There's a place for both styles of writing. Is it boring to say, find the best way and then respect it? I hope not. Nobody's going to argue with Sarah, but I knew there would be some pushback for Jamie's attempt at writing a book with AI.
The challenge I'm having with this book is that right now we have two ends of the spectrum for collaboration with AI. On one hand, you have high school kids who are cheating on their papers and just having AI write it, or you have this quote unquote author named Mia Ballard who had a book named Shy Girl that, as far as we can tell, it was just she pressed a couple buttons on AI. And then this horrible book came out that was 80% AI. And then Hachette pulled it off of the shelves, and she never stood up for herself. She never said, "Oh no, that's a mistake." On the other side, you have Refik Anadol, this incredible artist who has the installation at the Museum of Modern Art, which is 3 stories tall screen, where he's input a visual representation of the entire collection of the Museum of Modern Art with an algorithm that creates an inspired series of shapes and colors and forms. And it's like a lava lamp that's continuously morphing. And that is incredible creation of something AI couldn't have done alone, human couldn't have done alone. It's human plus AI. And that's what I'm shooting for. But right now, when people see it's written with AI, people think, oh, it must be just some crappy thing where he pressed a button. Not that I'm a novelist who suffered over every word.
When you were finished with this book,
Yep.
Did you feel differently than when you finished your previous books?
Not really, because it wasn't that this was any easier. It wasn't that I felt like I had skipped steps. I had just taken different steps that were challenging in a different way. If I had, done this whole thing in a day and then just, gone to Kinko's, I would have thought, well, geez, my first book took 9 years. I did this book in one day. I've got, 9 years, 9 times 365, 2,800th of a commitment to this book. But I really put my all into this book. So I really feel committed to it. And one of the, on NetGalley, a reviewer actually had a very thoughtful point. They said, I read the whole book. I read in the book, I have a description of the author process. And he said, I really feel like you sold yourself short because you insisted on putting GPT-5's name on the cover as a matter of principle. But actually, the book is you. And so, I thought it was kind of interesting because I definitely want to be on the far, far end of total disclosure. And I think everybody should be, even though that's not the case now, about the nature of collaborations with AI. But I feel like, in a way, that is what happened. I cut massively. I rewrote the entire book. It's my book, but I collaborated with GPT-5 in a way that had I not had access to GPT-5, it's just the nature of the book would have been different. I wouldn't have been able to interrogate all of human history.
This is actually like an ideal way for students to be graded on their work. If they had to show everything that you put into this process, they are given an example of what they learned along the way. And if
Yeah.
they
So
come in
yeah.
with
Yeah.
one tap of the button, we know that not much work went
Yeah.
into it.
I agree. So another person said that they made their sons read this book, read the section of the book about the nature of my collaboration to make the point. This is a collaborative medium. It can be a cheating medium, and so I think I've said this for a long time. What I think is what should happen in our schools is two things. On one hand, there should be a lot of schooling that happens with zero technology. And that's about the thinking, creativity. People should do like you and I did, Cal, when we were kids, rolling a tire down a street with a stick, writing essays in blue books, improvisational theater, debate with no notes. All of that needs to be part of our education. And then there should be another part of all in with technology where we're educating people on how to use technology optimally. Because if you're a person and you just are cheating on your high school papers and you found a way just to press a few buttons and ChatGPT does your work, you are totally skillless. You have no marketable skills because everybody can do that. And so I think there's a whole lost generation now of people who think they're getting ahead because they're cheating with these AI algorithms. But they are going to have. I mean, I guess they can be massage therapists or things that are just purely physical jobs that people just want humans to do. But the nature of work is going to be figuring out, at least high level work, what do humans do better than machines, and over indexing on that so the humans can be the best possible humans. But if you're doing some kind of machine job and you're doing a second rate, half-assed job of where a machine can do something in first rate, like maybe we'll want that because there'll be little environments where people will feel good just of a human doing a certain thing. But in a whole lot of jobs where people don't see, where there's not a lot of emotional connection, like people want to have a baseball pitcher throwing the ball, not a machine throwing the ball at 1,000 miles an hour. But if you're just in a back end job in some company somewhere, nobody wants to go, it's so maybe quaint that this thing was done in this way. I mean, so I think we're going to need humans to do human jobs. We're going to have to figure out what those are, and it will be dynamic and changing over time.
The last thing to point out is how writers can now leverage the internet and AI to provide much more than what's between the covers of a book.
I'd love it. And to your listeners, if they want to learn more about this book, the website is theai10commandments.com. It's the AI 10 Commandments, spelling out the word 10, T-E-N, commandments.com. And in it, I have my AI ethics bot, which is trained on decades of my writing and my interviews. And you can ask it all kinds of ethical questions. And it's actually quite incredible. I made it with a company called Delphi.ai. So I encourage listeners to go play around with that.
Jamie is a futurist who just made you think about history in a new way. He's made young people think about a rigorous way of adapting their writing process to AI. And he's made us all think that we're in a historical pattern that is asking us to look differently at our religious and spiritual ways. I endorse Jamie's commandments, and I endorse humans doing great work and being rewarded for it with trips like the ones offered by Moments. I hope you got something good out of this episode. I did. Cheers.